when we start thinking about how to put curriculum together, ideally, we want to start with the kids. Who they are, what their unique characteristics are. Often in public schools, that's a big, broad question because the kids are everybody and they've got every characteristic. We've got a unique opportunity here about looking at the characteristics of students who are gifted, the characteristics of the students in particular who are coming into us. And that's a pretty unique opportunity. We then put up the other end of the spectrum, where we want them to go, who we want them to be. So what are our goals as a school, or what do we want to prepare them for? And then in the middle of that, we put resources, curriculum, and instruction. Curriculum and instruction is a very important combination to keep in mind because although we said I was going to talk about curriculum tonight, to be honest, many of the questions have as much to do with how the curriculum is delivered or the instruction as it does about the book that the kids use to learn out of. And you'll see why in a minute. So if we wanted to start with the kids, all I know about the kids that are coming right now is what I read in literature and what I know to be true generally of gifted kids, which may be true for all the kids in here or just some of the kids, or a little bit true about most of the kids. So what do we know about giftedness? We know that they're rapid learners. They soak up information like a sponge, especially when they're interested, not so much when they're not interested. I have a gifted child. We know that they tend to be intuitive, which is to say they put ideas together without necessarily understanding how it worked. You know, it's just they get the answer. And that's different from a typically developing child. As a matter of fact, that's one of the most profound differences you can find between a gifted child and a typically developing child. We know that along with the intelligence, there tends to be imaginativeness. And when you think about it, it makes sense. The more you know, the more different kinds of connections you can make, which leads to creativity. We know that they are emotionally more sensitive, often. They are independent or want to be beyond the typical adolescent. We know that they have good senses of humor, or we assume they're good thinkers. Well, we'll have to take a look at whether or not that's always the case. And then there's adolescence. And I also like to say to parents when I talk to them, especially the middle grades parents, that the battle between giftedness and adolescence often wins. And that can be very frustrating. I mean, not just for you as parents, but for the kids themselves. Some of the most interesting new stuff that we're learning about how gifted kids develop and how everybody develops is that the brain doesn't stop growing after birth. You actually acquire new brain as you grow, and that there's this real growth spurt in white matter right at the adolescent time. And it all comes right up here in the frontal cortex, which is the big executive control decision-making area, which is why, for a while, you find your kids stop making such good decisions. And it's why the middle school hallway is sort of the way it is. It's both a little bit frustrating because it's new brain and it needs to be developed, and they don't always know what to do with it, how to work with it well. It's a marvelous opportunity for an educator to start putting those connections together. We know that during adolescence, gifted kids in particular develop abstract thinking. They don't think about the city government, they can think about the government as a system. Not about squids, but about ocean creatures as a system, or about ecosystems in a larger sense. We know that with all of the changes, the physical, emotional, relational changes that a kid goes through in adolescence, that they tend to be very self-centered. That's not like selfish self-centered, it's just they're centered on themselves. When I worked at the Illinois Math and Science Academy, I used to sit down and have lunch with the kids every once in a while, and there'd be 4 of us at the table, and every sentence would start with the word I. It's very interesting. And that has a real context for where you start a curriculum with a child, especially if you want to do something experiential, and how you cast the curriculum. We know that it's a time of individuation, and that's code for parents. You're going to start being dumb to your kids. Okay? Which is to say, they need to stop relying on you so much and looking for other adults to use as role models, looking to their peers for support. I am in an ideal situation here because I am dumb at home right now, and I can walk into a school and be really smart. But just as the gifted kids seem to, maybe lose their bearing every once in a while as their brains and bodies grow and change, So their perceptions of you change in a necessary and good way. Also a good opportunity for us to put role models in front of gifted kids. People who we want them to emulate, people who can show them that growing up smart and strong is a wonderful and necessary thing. And then we also know that the social world gets to be very, very important. And so important for us to be able to create a context for them where they can show what they know and have it be okay socially.